So Behaviour just dropped a mammoth patch slated to be released on Tuesday the 2nd of September in PTB. It tackles major gameplay elements such as slugging and tunneling, as well as reworking Myers and some other killer adjustments. And it's safe to say the community has been sent into a spiral. The doom posting is in full effect. But behind it is passion for the game, so are they correct? Let's delve into it. Going into this patch, I'd like to preface my disposition in DBD. I play both sides almost 50-50. I currently have almost 9,300 hours, and I play for fun and chases. If winning comes along with that, then great. Although for me, winning is not the be end and end all. I attempt to play in a way where I can have fun in the match, and hopefully the survivors will too. Every match I go into, I'm going to attempt to get 8 hooks before killing anyone. However, there are scenarios which arise where I'll have to play a little bit more adaptive. If the survivors put a high pace on the gens, which doesn't allow me to play fun and fair, I'll adapt to their energy and try and make things more interesting and try and claw back the game. This may result in me taking more tactical decisions like killing specific survivors when gens are low, or defending a 3-gen if the survivors force one upon themselves. I'd first like to outline what I believe tunneling truly is in my opinion. To me, tunneling is intentionally targeting one survivor to catch them immediately after being unhooked, when they're unhealed and potentially at their most vulnerable. To me, tunneling can be described as light or extreme. In the extreme cases, all subsequent hooks will be on the same survivor, seeing a death within 3 to 4 hooks. In more light cases of tunneling, you could see a survivor hooked immediately after their first stage, but I don't believe this is bad if you don't follow it up for the killing hook on the survivor. As a survivor, this is nowhere near as frustrating as getting tunneled to death. There's scenarios that arise in some of my matches where I can't find any of the survivors, so instead I decide to chase the unhooked survivor just to get some more stages into the game. But to be fair, I don't chase them after this, and instead I'll avoid them, choosing to chase them much later in the match. Now this is intentionally ineffective gameplay in the current meta, but I find it to be more fun this way. Now the main thing about tunneling is it's obviously way easier on higher tier killers, although the weaker killers are the ones that require a little bit more to compete in those higher level lobbies. At the highest level of survivor, it's all about spreading out and doing individual gens, making sure to break any possible 3 gens, and when in chase, not sandbagging those progressing gens. And when you go down in the correct spots. Dying in the corner of the map can buy the team so much time on generators. In games like this as the killer, you can easily see 3 gens done for only 1 or 2 hook stages. This is over half the survivor's objective complete in potentially 90 seconds. These games can be incredibly hard to play fair, and this is where the issue arises with Behaviour's proposed tunneling system. In Behaviour's new system, survivors are going to benefit from permanent gen speed bonuses if one of the survivors dies before 6 hooks. So going off my definition of tunneling, let me show you an immediate flaw in this system. Say Zarina as your first chase. You hook Zarina, you hook another survivor, you then again chase Zarina and hook her, you go after another new survivor, and then your 5th hook of the game, you kill Zarina. And despite chasing different survivors every hook, and potentially letting Zarina heal and work on some generators in between chases, the game's still going to punish you and define it as tunneling. To me, this is just totally incorrect. Sure, it might suck to die at 5 hooks, but you haven't been tunneled. So let's slightly alter that scenario. Zarina's still going to die on the 5th hook, but say she was also the 4th hook in that game. Now Behaviour would define this as extreme tunneling in this proposed system, and the killer would be punished with no longer being able to regress generators or block them for the rest of the trial. To me, this is just punishing weaker killers in the high level matches. And could this system be intentionally abused? That is a dangerous thing to think about. A recently hooked survivor that's on death hook could just throw themselves at the killer with DS and off the record, encouraging the killer to, in quotations, tunnel, and when they eventually sacrifice the survivor, they're punished with wasting time on the anti-tunnel perks, but also not being able to kick gens, not being able to block gens, and also survivor getting permanent gen speed potentially. Now just think about solo queue. Will there be a scenario where your teammates leave you on the hook to die before 6 hooks so they can gain that gen speed bonus? That does not sound like gameplay that should be encouraged. I do not like that at all. Now some other features in this patch include the killers not receiving notifications when the survivors are unhooked. This is to de-incentivize killers coming back to hook, but how is this going to impact perks like Make Your Choice that requires you to come back to hook, or Devour that gains stacks upon unhooks? And there is the potential. Will killers proxy camp even more because they'll guarantee being able to see the survivor unhooked and get a chase, bypassing no notifications? Now with some of the next changes, I'm not sure if intentionally withholding information from the killer is a good idea. Unhooked survivors will gain haste, endurance, and a new status effect called elusive, which gives no grunts of pain, no auras, pools of blood, or scratch marks. This is comparable to having lucky break, distortion, and iron will upon being unhooked. Unhooked survivors will also become immune to killer instinct, which is going can negatively affect certain killers like Legion, where chin and hits together is required to get downs in power, even though frenzy hits on unhooked survivors isn't always the tunnel. Now these effects are going to remain until the survivor does a conspicuous action, giving the survivors a lot of tools to get away from the killer and not be found. This on its own is a massive de-incentive to tunnel, but on top of the previous mentioned punishment systems, it seems like a lot for the killers to manage. Have behavior considered a scenario where 4 survivors come in wearing the exact same skin. These games are almost impossible to fairly hook, and tracking who's fresh hook or close to being sacrificed and being punished for not being able to do that correctly seems like a bad idea. Now finally, one of the things I like from the proposed tunneling reduction update is the benefit from unique hooks. Killers will now gain haste, bonus generator damage to the next kick gen, and a light barbecue effect upon hooking a new survivor. In my opinion, incentivizing not tunneling is a better way of going about it rather than punishing for tunneling. And also it's really interesting to note, these effects are going to be lessened on some of the stronger killers like Blight, Dracula, Ghoul, Billy and Nurse, which is like behavior's first time of really acknowledging the stronger killers in the game. Now with this system, it's really important to see what the numbers are like. How much haste, how much gen regression, how long are we going to be able to see the survivors' auras, and importantly, what is the gen speed bonus survivors get if the killers define the tunnel. I've decided to create my own system. Firstly, it's important to define what extreme and light tunneling is. I believe if a survivor dies within 3 to 4 hooks, that is considered extreme tunneling. In a scenario where the remaining survivors could benefit with a larger gen speed bonus, say something like 7.5% increased gen speed, this would be 6.75 seconds faster on a solo gen. In a scenario where tunneling is more light, when someone dies within 5 hooks, but the last 2 hooks are on the same survivor, the remaining survivors could benefit from a lessened gen speed bonus, something like 5%, which is 4.5 seconds faster on a solo gen. Now in my opinion, this system needs a cap, much like the abandoned system. Say if these conditions aren't met within 8 to 10 minutes, gen speed bonuses cannot activate. This would be the game identifying the killer is struggling to gain hook stages. Now personally, I'd completely get rid of the effect of killers not being able to regress or block gens, and instead I'd much prefer a fair hooking system. Killers that consecutively hook fresh hook survivors gain bonuses. Say 7, 8, 9, 10% haste for 10 seconds after hooking, 1, 2, 3, 4 revealed survivors auras after hooking, 5, 6, 7, 8% extra gen regression for the next kick you do. So for me, this system will gain a stack up to 4 for every time you hook a survivor that's fresh hook. It'll pause when you hook a survivor that's already been hooked, and if you hook a survivor that has been hooked the previous hook, it will actually reset. So if you do choose to tunnel, you'll forgo this system and not get the benefits, and also potentially buff the survivors depending on how extreme you tunnel. Hopefully these benefits are going to promote you to leave hook with the haste to patrol gens or take chases with the auras. For this system to truly work, I believe the stronger mobility killers are going to have to be defined to not excessively benefit from the buffs and have a lessened effect compared to the weaker killers. Whatever behavior's approach this ends up being, it needs to be the correct one. Something like this could make or break the game for a lot of players if not done correctly. Now for the next major system, the Slugging update. This is a system I don't mind. Being able to unlock Unbreakable after being slugged for 90 seconds is fine in my opinion. It gives room for slugging for pressure, but also adds a counter to more aggressive and excessive slugging. Remember that recovering fully by base takes 32 seconds, so even after unlocking the ability to recover fully after 90 seconds, the next slugging situation is still going to take some time to get up. Now I do like that idea of automatically recovering, as it's going to eliminate those awkward solo queue moments where teammates don't recover and need to be picked up from the floor. However, I'm not sure about the base kit tenacity, being able to recover while crawling, as light slugging to generate pressure, then coming back to pick up the survivor may result in further slugging if the killer cannot find the survivor on the floor. This is also going to greatly benefit perks like Power Struggle and Conviction, as slugging can be guaranteed with altruistic survivors holding flashlights or deliberately dying under a pallet. This system has the potential to be decent, however I just completely removed the tenacity element as it could be abused. Now that's the 2 major changes this patch. Next we have some specific killer changes. Myers now has 2 different modes. His Stalker mode's now going to allow you to choose to be undetectable, albeit a lot slower. Now this is going to be the only mode where you can stalk survivors. I like this change, as typically Myers' stealth elements is lost within the first minute of the match, unless you're running something like Scratch Mirror Myers. However, this add-on's become a bit redundant with the previous map offering changes. To me this is cool because it allows you to choose to be immersive and scary, which really fits Myers perfectly. His second mode, Pursuer, allows you to become the Chaser with normal movement speed, 24 meter tear radius, and increases to vault speed, lunge range, break speed, and stun recovery. However, in this mode, you can't stoke, meaning you have to toggle between the two modes, becoming a little bit slower and a little bit faster if the pursuer. The big major change is when he gains Evil Incarnate, his tear radius will dramatically increase to 40 meters. But survivors aren't going to be exposed, which is big. And now his insta-down comes with his Slaughtering Strike attack. This is essentially a charge lunge, bit akin to how Pig's Ambush works, or perks like Coup de Grace or All Shake and Thunder, and this lunge can also break pallets. It'll give Myers a bit more chase potential, which is nice. However, it's not the most original of designs, sadly. With a lot of dash-based killers already in the game, we'll have to test this out in PTB to really form an opinion on it, but it's something. Another big change is his ability to grab and Mori Death Hook survivors. Now, could this promote second hook tunneling to avoid off the record and DS? Very cool to incorporate his Mori into his base kit, but could this be abused? There's also some adjustments to his stalk range and speed, which will hopefully suit his new playstyle. I'm very intrigued to see the add-on rework though. I do worry a little bit of build variety if Myers is going to be lost. Is Tombstone, Vanity Mirror and Scratch Mirror still available? At least with the Fragrant Tuft of Hair add-on, he converts into the current style of Myers, without the lunge attack and with exposing survivors. Clown almost got a full reverse on his changes, with his haste bottles now taking longer to activate, which is amazing because now it'll require some thought and setup to gain the haste rather than just pressing M2 and gaining incredible speed. And as a compensation, his Hindel now lasts a little bit longer when leaving the smoke. Unknown got some really nice buffs too, with more weaken added when injured by the UVX. He also got a bit of the blurry photo add-on in base kit with more speed to his recovery when teleporting. I also really like the change to his vertical camera movement, allowing for orbital style shots. This is going to further increase the skill ceiling with an already really fun killer, but I'm also really curious to see, can he aim lower too, making it a bit easier to shoot them survivors dodging towards you? Again, we'll have to see what the new add-ons are, but W changes. Dracula also received some changes with reduction to Hellfire cooldown and one more pillar to Hellfire. Nice changes allowing for further shots, which will feel really clean to hit. They also reduced the movement speed while charging Hellfire and slowed down after firing. This will hopefully reduce the amount of M2 zoners you get on the killer and actually penalise you for missing. Personally, I'm very happy with those changes, as it can be pretty frustrating to play against that playstyle. For some reason, they also slightly nerfed the Wolf by increasing the pounce time and Scent Orb spawn time. We'll have to find out the numbers on this one, but I'm not a fan. I find the Wolf to be the most fun part of Dracula to play and play against, so I'd like more incentive to play him rather than less. The bat also got an increased movement friction to help make flying a little bit easier to control. Once again, we'll have to wait and see what the adjustments to add-ons are. The Ghoul's Kidnap tech also looks to be removed, which is great news. Hopefully it's going to alleviate one of the bigger issues people have with facing Ghoul. Oni also gets some blood orbs when hooking survivors, some slight incentive to hook rather than to slug, an alright change if the amount of blood is decent. To finally round off this mega patch, we'll have various perk updates, but we'll have to wait and see what they are. These are going to have a knock-on effect from the slugging and tunneling changes. Now that was a big one. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. Are these good changes? Are they terrible? What would you do differently? And do you like my proposed changes to the tunneling system? Let me know. Let's have a good discussion on this.